If you believe the ending makes the movie, then this may not be the movie for you. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss Wonder Woman. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramie Wells, and joining me today in the co-host chair with a lasso-like grip on pop culture, from Pop Culture Roulette, please welcome Nicholas Pepin.
You know, I found an island once, but I'm not allowed to go back.
Yeah. All right, so we are talking about the 2017 Wonder Woman movie, one of the highlights of the DCEU, I would have to say.
I would absolutely agree with you on that.
But before we get into it, we're going to talk about the background a little bit. Again, the movie did come out in 2017, but it started back in 1996. So that was when development started for bringing Wonder Woman to the big screen. Of course, we had the Lynda Carter series in the 70s. Were you a fan of the Lynda Carter series?
I've seen a handful of episodes here or there, but it's been a long time. I mean, I'm a fan of the idea of the Wonder Woman with Lynda Carter series because I do love watching those old shows. And it's on Max, I think, so...
Yeah, I think it is. Of course, I have to say, I own all 3 seasons.
Well, of course you do.
Yeah. I'm also curious, have you ever seen or heard of the 1974 TV movie, Wonder Woman, that starred Kathy Lee Crosby?
Yes, I am, because I did that episode those episodes a while back where we did the Who Played It Best.
Oh,
so
that's right.
In all of my research, I am aware of it. I have never seen it. I've seen still photos of it, but I've never seen it.
Because that was where Wonder Woman, quote unquote, if you want to say, she didn't have any superpowers. She was just like a spy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which they did do in the comics. In the 60s, they actually took Wonder Woman's powers away from her. It was a choice that she gave up her powers in order to spend more time with Steve Trevor.
Right.
So there is that, but this was now bringing her to the big screen, and it started in 1996, and I am so interested to hear what you think about this. In 1996, the Wonder Woman movie was going to be directed by Ivan Reitman.
I mean, no.
Okay, why not?
I mean, he does very well at what he does, but superhero movie, like the type of superhero movie that I want to see, this one, the 2017 one, I don't think that's what we would have got. I think we would have gotten...
Oh, absolutely not.
We would have gotten a slapstick, maybe Ghostbusters, level. I don't know. I mean, it probably would have been good. But being the 90s, especially that era of the 90s...
Especially 96, because you got Schumacher Batman.
Yeah. They would not have even tried to make anything remotely comic accurate, except for maybe the costume. And even that is questionable, based on what we got out of Schumacher and others.
All right. So of course that didn't happen. Then by 1999... Joel Silver was set as the producer, and he wanted Sandra Bullock to play Wonder Woman.
In 99?
In 99.
99, Sandra Bullock could have done a decent job. That would have been... She was
Practical
big.
Magic.
Yeah, she was...
Hope Floats.
I guess she had just gotten big, because that would have been like post-Speed as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that would have been after Speed, 99.
I could see that era of Sandra Bullock doing it.
Okay, how about this? By 2001, so just 2 years later, there were rumors. I didn't find anything where either one of them actually was attached, but there were rumors that Mariah Carey and Catherine Zeta-Jones were in line to play Wonder Woman.
One of those two I could very easily see as Wonder Woman. The other one had proved when she did her movie Glitter, as to why she should never do anything other than sing in a movie.
Yeah, I don't know who would have thought Mariah Carey could play Wonder Woman. Again, Catherine Zeta-Jones, I agree with you, because this would have been around Zorro time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she was into the action stuff, Entrapment.
Yeah.
of course, and part of me wondered how true this was too. At one point in the early 2000s, Lucy Lawless was considered.
Well, of course she was. I mean, that's coming
I
off.
mean, Xena was Wonder Woman.
Right. I mean, she was
Yeah.
coming off of Xena. Of course they would have, and she was massively popular. So, I mean, if they were going to do something a little bit more lower scale, I don't know if they would have given her a big budget like theatrical movie, but I could see them wanting to get somebody like Lucy Lawless involved.
Of course, she did later go on to voice Wonder Woman. I think it was in New Frontier, maybe? Yeah, it was New Frontier. All right, now we turn to where I started. I actually remember hearing about this Wonder Woman movie, and that was in 2005. Warner Brothers announced that they were doing a Wonder Woman movie with Joss Whedon as the writer and director.
Yeah, see, now that's the era I also remember
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, if anybody's going to do it, like this guy knows how to do it.
Yeah, because he's right off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, and his clearly with like Buffy, like he could clearly do a female-led.
2005, is that before Dollhouse?
Ooh, I don't remember what year Dollhouse was.
I know that's because you had Dollhouse and you had.
Yes, that was before Dollhouse.
Okay,
Dollhouse was
all right.
2009.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think, notwithstanding everything that's happened since, I think that era Joss Whedon could have done a pretty solid Wonder Woman movie.
Yes, he was still a horrible person at that time.
Well, yeah.
But as a creator,
we didn't
we didn't
know
it
then.
Yeah. So apparently his version would have had Steve Trevor as a narrator, which already I went, ooh, no, I don't want a narrator in my movies other than Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption.
Correct.
And had him multiple times having to help Diana, who was rendered helpless by the modern world.
That sounds like they did. I mean, and you might have it on your list here, but that TV show they tried to do with Adrian Padalecki.
Yes, the failed NBC Wonder Woman television show.
Yeah, which I'm glad failed because it was awful, or would have been awful.
Which, if you don't know what we're talking about, go look it up on YouTube. You can watch the whole first pilot. That's the only thing that exists of the Wonder Woman from, the failed TV pilot. That just, it is bad. Now, Whedon has gone on record saying that, or at the time he went on record, saying he did not want to cast Wonder Woman until he finished the script. However, there was talk that Kate Beckinsale was his number one choice.
I see it.
I see it too. I mean, you had the Underworld movies right there.
Right.
I mean, she was definitely a top contender for a female action star. Unfortunately, Whedon couldn't finish a script, and he walked away in 2007. In 2010, Whedon admitted that he actually thought of Angelina Jolie at one point.
Yeah, I mean, at various different eras of people, I'm sure a lot of these women were thought of for Wonder Woman. I mean, you have one of the biggest DC characters. Of course, they're going to go after Angelina Jolie and Sandra Bullock and.
Yeah. I stand by this. I've said this several times on this show. I think when you're casting a comic book movie, when you're casting a superhero, I mean, it has worked otherwise, but I think you go with a no name. And that's essentially what they did in this movie.
Yes. I mean, I would agree with you.
She had been in other stuff, but
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think casting a no name has worked out better for Superman than when they've casted somebody who was really well known. I think it worked out really well in this case. Oh, it's been hit or miss with Batman, but
Yeah. I mean, have they ever casted an unknown as Batman though? Because Michael Keaton was known. He was just a comedic actor.
Right.
I mean, Val Kilmer and George Clooney were huge actors.
Yeah.
Christian Bale, maybe he wasn't.
He wasn't the household name.
He was more. Yeah, he was more of an independent.
Yeah, I mean, he had done a couple. He had done The Machinist and American Psycho, but not necessarily movies that had garnered the reputation.
Big blockbuster. Yeah. So maybe Christian Bale, but Robert Pattinson. I mean, he had the Twilight movies. Everybody knew who he was.
Right. So I guess Ben
Affleck again.
Yeah. So all right, I guess Batman, they've never really cast a complete unknown, George. Henry Cavill had been in some stuff before, but not really like. I
Yeah.
mean, he obviously became who he is now because
Yeah,
of.
and I mean, I even go back to Hugh Jackman's the same thing. I
Yeah,
mean, Hugh Jackman wasn't a well-known name when he played Wolverine, but
at least in this country.
yeah, no, true. Which is probably the case for Henry Cavill too. I mean, I'm
Right.
sure he
Yeah.
did a lot of stuff in Britain. All right, so where did we leave off? We're in 2007, and in 2007, another script was purchased by Joel Silver because he wanted to. I read this just because he wanted to hold on to the rights, so he just purchased a script. And that one placed the story in World War II. Silver again just purchased the script to keep the rights, but he did not like the script because he did not want to make a period piece.
Yeah. Again, if you don't want to make a comic book movie, don't try to make a comic book movie. Like,
100% agree. So Warner Brothers then decided not to move forward with with a Wonder Woman solo movie, but instead in 2008, Warner Brothers decided to make a Justice League movie, and I'm curious if you remember this. That was going to be called Justice League Mortal, and that would be the cinematic debut of Wonder Woman. And this Justice League movie was going to be directed by George Miller.
yes, that's the one where there were actors were on set in Australia
Yep.
and were getting ready to film. In fact, I think they even filmed a couple things when the writer strike happened and it shut the movie down.
Yeah, so it was cast. An Australian model named Megan Gale had actually been casted as Wonder Woman, so she was a relatively unknown. She would later on continue to work with George Miller. She played Valkyrie in Fury Road. Couldn't lock in the face on that character. It's been a while since I've seen Fury Road, but that was really the only thing I recognized that she has also done. But yes, like you said, it got delayed because of the writer strike and many other things. And then Warner Brothers started getting worried about the budget, and so they just completely scrapped the film. And so we did not get what I think could have been a great Justice League movie
Yes.
directed by George Miller.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if you have the cast in front of you because I don't remember at all. But
I just put down Wonder
okay,
Woman.
because I remember Armie Hammer was going to be Batman, and I thought that was a pretty good.
I do remember that.
And,
but again, horrible person, but back then.
Well, yeah, but we didn't know that.
We didn't know that at that time. That's true. Yeah. Okay, so in 2010. Warner Brothers went back to saying there was going to be a solo movie for Wonder Woman. They had also planned, this is when they announced they were going to do an Aquaman solo movie and a Flash solo movie, all back in 2010. That just kind of stayed in limbo until 2013 when Paul Feig pitched an idea for doing an action comedy.
Now, I like Paul Feig.
Yeah, but again, you like Ivan Reitman too.
However, given what he did with a different, highly iconic franchise that Ivan Reitman was involved in, I don't know if letting him do Wonder Woman would have been the best of ideas.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Again, I don't dislike a lot of stuff Paul Feig is, but Paul Feig, like you talked about with Ivan Reitman, like he's got his style of movie,
yeah,
and Wonder Woman does not fit into that style.
Like, listen, I don't hate Girl Ghostbusters. I actually kind of enjoy it for what it is, not a Ghostbusters movie. If they had called it anything else, it would have been great.
Yeah,
and there's a whole nother discussion that we could have that's not for this podcast. That's probably more for Pop Culture Roulette on marketing and how to or how not to market a movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because he did Simple Favor. That's probably one of the less like straight up comedic movies he's done, and that was pretty good. But I can't think of him doing an action. Like you said, he wanted to be an action comedy, and the closest he's ever done to that, I guess, was Ghostbusters.
He did The Heat with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But so I mean, what if he had done it? It would have been watchable. I just don't know if it would have been
iconic.
Yes.
Which is what a superhero movie needs to be.
Right, especially the solo debut. Like, I mean, Wonder Woman getting her own solo movie for the first time, you need what we got, not what he would have done.
Yeah, he would have done Superman 3. That's what he would have done.
Probably.
Paul Feig didn't get the opportunity, though, because Warner Brothers actually decided they wanted a female director. And their first choice was a woman by the name of Michelle McLaurin, who I had never heard of. I looked up her filmography. She really just directs a bunch of TV shows, and she eventually left just due to creative differences. Are you familiar with the name Michelle McLaurin?
I also looked her up when I was reading and doing some research, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I've seen that show. I've seen that show. I've seen that show.
Yeah.
I've seen." So I was like, "But
You can't pinpoint the exact like episodes.
right, yeah." And I mean,
Yeah.
very rarely can I tell you what director directed a TV show,
Yeah.
especially when there's like 100 episodes. Like
Yeah.
I know certain people have directed an episode, but like I know Quentin Tarantino directed an episode or two of Alias. I couldn't tell you which one.
I think he also did an episode of CSI.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably
That
couldn't tell you
that
what-
one I can
yeah.
actually tell you which one because that was
Okay.
because that's one of the weirder episodes of CSI. But
Oh, I'm sure. But in 2015, that is when Patty Jenkins was hired. And so we have our director. The screenplay for this movie was by Alan Heinberg, who also has written for a lot of TV shows, but I recognize the name because he is a comic book writer. He is actually the guy who co-created the Young Avengers for Marvel. And so he also helped co-create the characters of Kate Bishop and Iron Lad and Speed and Wiccan. He helped write the story along with Zack Snyder and a guy by the name of Jason Fuchs. I could find nothing on him, so I wasn't sure about him. He unfortunately did not finish the script. He left to do stuff for TV. And so Patty Jenkins and Jeff Johns finished the script. I love Jeff Johns,
Yeah.
so I can't say anything bad about Jeff Johns.
I love that and I have no idea. I'm guessing he had no real influence. I just know he's one of the few people who I've ever heard publicly say it. When Kevin Smith almost wrote or even was attached at some point with that Superman movie that him and Tim Burton were going to do. He's gone on record of saying multiple times he told them in meetings, go hire the guys who write the comic books. They know the characters.
Absolutely.
They know the characters.
Absolutely.
And they were like, oh no, we don't do
Alan
that.
Heinberg had actually written for Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I didn't put that down because I was more impressed with the fact that I knew him from Young Avengers. But
Yeah.
he had written for Wonder Woman.
But it took a while, but eventually Hollywood did come around to the idea of like, hey, if these guys are writing essentially a script already,
Yeah.
Like why not hire them to write this script?
It just makes sense. So we finally got our movie, and it was released June 2nd of 2017. So now I got to ask, did you see it in theaters?
Absolutely. And I'm fairly certain I saw it opening weekend because I would have wanted to. I know I saw it in the theaters. It's either first or second weekend that I saw it.
I probably saw it first weekend because, again, my birthday is June 5th. And I remember when they announced that this was coming out June 2nd. And I was like, that's my birthday movie. That is what I'm going to see for my birthday. So I 100% saw this in theaters.
My birthday's May 3rd, so I tend to always get a big Marvel movie either on or right next to. So
yeah, once they moved the summer blockbusters up in a full month.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of May. Oh yeah. No, I remember Iron Man being one of the first that came out like May 8th or something.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into the characters. Of course, we have to start with Diana Prince, Wonder Woman herself. Okay, I know I have talked about on the show this time several times about not being able to pronounce her name. I watched a YouTube video, which I will post the link to in the show notes, of an Israeli woman explaining how to pronounce her name. I watched that video. I watched it 3 times. I'm still sure I am not pronouncing it correctly. Which she says in the video, we are saying it the American way. And it's because of just the way we use letters. She goes in this whole thing about vowels and all that. So we, of course, say gal, but apparently it's not gal. It's like gal, which, again, I know I'm pronouncing wrong. And then her last name is Godot. And you do hit the T at the end. But I know I'm probably still pronouncing it wrong, but I'm giving it my best try. Wonder Woman played by Gal Gadot. I probably hit that T too hard.
I am way off. I've been pronouncing it Gal Gadot since ever.
Yeah. Again, I've pronounced it Godot. I've pronounced it Godot. But apparently it's Godot. Godot or Godot again. Like I said, I will post the YouTube video and you can hear how it's supposed to be
How about
pronounced.
this? She comes on a show, and teaches us how to pronounce her name.
Well, there at the beginning of this one, there is she's on not Jimmy Kimmel, yeah, Jimmy Kimmel, and he pronounces it, and she says very good, but then she still tells him he still needs to work on the Godot, which is again why I'm pretty sure I'm still saying it wrong. Yeah, I'm a school teacher. I've had some foreign students that I've tried to pronounce their names, and they will say it to me, and I will repeat it back, and they still tell me I'm saying it wrong, but I swear in my ear I am saying it the way they're telling me. It's just those subtle things. But yeah, no offense. I'm trying my best to pronounce her name. But let's talk about her for a minute, because we talked about unknowns. So she wasn't 100% unknown. She was Miss Israel 2004, who then competed in the Miss Universe competition.
Right.
Which, again, have you seen her? Can you doubt it? At the age of 20, she entered the Israel Defense Forces as a combat fitness instructor. And that is where she completed her mandatory 2 years of service, which everyone has to do. So she does have military training. Not only that, but she has a black belt in karate and Krav Maga. And then she decided, not she decided, but because of that background, that drew her into the Fast and the Furious movies, because they were interested in the fact that she did know military and did want that expertise to give a very realistic performance to that character. So she had appeared in several of the Fast and Furious movies. I think I've said this before on the show. I have never seen a Fast and the Furious movie past the second one, so I have not seen her in a Fast and the Furious movie. Are you familiar with her in the Fast and Furious
I
movies?
have seen every Fast and Furious movie, most of them in the theaters.
Okay.
The second one is the bad one. See, you gave up after the bad one. You needed to
Really?
start
I thought
again.
Tokyo Drift was the bad one. That's not the
Okay,
bad one?
okay, 2 and 3. I don't know how that franchise escaped 2 and 3,
Yeah.
because like 4 is when it kind of got back. 5 is when it really got back on the rails.
Yeah, I've heard 5's a good one.
If you go into the franchise with the idea that you are watching live action cartoons,
Yeah.
and physics and reality do not exist, so it's very funny when you
Yes.
say they wanted her to bring a realism to the character, because it's not something they really focus in on that franchise.
I will say it has the more recent movies have enticed me to go back and maybe give it a shot. I just haven't yet.
They're fun if you know that you're watching stupid fun. Like, you're not gonna watch. You're not watching.
Look, I'm a fan of the Expendable movies, so I'm good with stupid fun.
Then you will love these movies.
Yeah.
Really, starting with 5. Don't worry about the first 4, but
Okay. All right, so here she was playing Wonder Woman. Let's talk about the character. Wonder Woman first appeared in All Star Comics #8 in October of 1941, thus completing our DC trilogy, or Trinity, excuse me, of Superman, Batman, and now Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was created by psychologist and writer William Moulton Marston, as well as artist Harry G. Peter, who would later just be credited sometimes as H.G. Peter. So, do you know? I don't want to get into this because this is another story for another episode. But do you know anything about Marston and the way he created Wonder Woman?
Yeah, he and his partner, wife,
and life partner.
yeah, and
Yes.
has a very interesting story. I also know that he decided to try to make a real lasso of truth, and was one of the inventors, or was the inventor of the lie detector.
Yeah. So he and his wife, because his wife was a very knowledgeable woman as well. They invented a blood pressure type monitor that would later be a main component of the polygraph.
Yeah.
So yeah, he created Wonder Woman based off of his wife, who was based off the character of his wife, because she was a strong, independent, intelligent woman who was driven and motivated. And then he based the look off of their life partner who lived with them. In fact, after Molston passed away, which was only a few years after he created Wonder Woman, I think he passed away in 43. But after he passed away, his wife and their partner actually lived together until their deaths. but he based the look of Wonder Woman off of their life partner. Again, this is a story that is for a whole nother episode. We're not going to get into all of that. If you don't know this story, there is a movie about it called Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. Have you ever seen that movie?
It's on my list, but I've never gotten around to watching it.
I have seen it. I've only seen it once. It is an interesting story. I'll be honest. And I've contemplated, even though it's not 100%, it's not based on a comic book. It is comic book connected. So I have thought about covering it on the show. So maybe one day we will hit that. But let me ask you this. You mentioned we brought up earlier that we had done an episode where we talked about who played it best. Can you argue whether Linda Carter or Gal Gadot played this character best? To me, they both own this character.
In very different ways.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
Linda Carter has a certain look that I think fits the character better. And because she was first, there's that bias. But there's also the 70s cheese factor of that, where I think even though Gal Gadot doesn't necessarily have the 100% classic image of Wonder Woman, I think she pulled off the mannerisms and the character a lot more, at least modern comic.
Oh yeah, definitely the era of the comic. Gal fits it a lot better, and then Linda Carter fit it for that. I mean, it's like Adam West with Batman,
right?
I mean, but I don't think when you think of who is one of the better Batmans, unfortunately, Adam West to me never really gets into that argument. When you say who do you think of when you think of Batman, Adam West is probably not in the top 3 for me. I don't know about you, but when I think of Wonder Woman, I really bounce back and forth as to do I picture Linda Carter or do I picture Gal Gadot?
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's an age thing, where
Yeah.
you and I being older,
Yeah.
um,
I was about to say I watched them as reruns. I'm not.
yeah. I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in '78, so I'm
Yeah. So you also would have had to watch them as
right.
reruns.
There's that. So I mean, I'm sure if I work with a 19-year-old. I'm sure if I asked him who he thought Wonder Woman was, the Linda Carter thing wouldn't even be a thing that he would come up with.
Yeah.
Depending
I mean,
on whether
that.
his dad, who's the same age as I am, would have told him about it or shown it to him.
Yeah, which as he should. I mean, you need to raise them right. They need to be aware of Linda Carter, just like they need to be aware of Christopher Reeve as Superman. But this is a fun trivia fact that I just absolutely love. So they did not want to worry about Gal's accent, her Israeli accent. So they just had all the women who were going to be on Themyscira speak with an Israeli accent.
Hey, that works, right? Like,
how awesome is that?
Yeah, but rather than train the one to do an accent, just train everybody else.
Yeah, but to me that is just so awesome because you're showing this is who we want as our Wonder Woman. Because if you tried to give even as much as international stars do American accents, you run into those few, Benedict Cumberbatch, who can't quite pull off an American accent.
You're correct. Like he is a wonderful actor, but
yes,
accents are not his thing. And then you get Tom Holland, who you're like, wait, that guy's English?
Oh yeah, there's several of those. Because I mean Henry Cavill, I will say Henry Cavill, you can tell it's a forced American accent. Again, I love him as Superman, but you can tell. But Tom Hardy is another one.
Yeah, well, he can do just about anything, though.
Yeah. I mean that. Yeah. Colin Farrell, that's one that sometimes shocks the way but that's more the way he actually talks.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to Steve Trevor, played by Captain Kirk himself, Chris Pine. I am one that will always think of him as Captain Kirk. Steve Trevor made his first appearance in All-Star Comics #8 of October 1941. He was in the first comic along with Wonder Woman. Throughout the years, he has pretty much been your ideal, the Lois Lane to Superman. He's been Wonder Woman's partner, her liaison, if you will. Of course, a love interest. I mean, all of the above. They have been together throughout the comics. They did separate them at one point, but that doesn't last. I did find this interesting. Marston made Steve blonde because he believed that the best romantic combination is a blue-eyed brunette girl and a light-haired man, because blonde males are more submissive to brunette females. Again, this is a story for another episode.
Maybe even a whole nother podcast. I don't know.
Yeah. So what did you think of Chris Pine in this
I
one?
thought he did a great job. I mean,
Yeah,
he very rarely do I ever watch a movie with Chris Pine and be like, he's the problem.
true.
You know, I really enjoyed his take on Steve Trevor.
Yeah, I wasn't against it. Why you said that, I'm running through my head like, there are bad movies with Chris Pine, but Chris Pine's not the problem. This Means War came to mind because we had just talked about Tom Hardy.
Yes, he's not the reason that movie is bad.
None of them are. It's just a bad movie. Next up, we've got our villain, Sir Patrick, and spoilers, he is the god Ares, played by David Thewlis. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I've always pronounced it Thuelis, but
Thewlis. That makes sense as well.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Again, apologies to him if we mispronounce it. But here he is playing Ares, our main villain, who doesn't really show up until the last 10 minutes of the movie. He first appeared in Wonder Woman #1 in June of 1942. So I didn't talk about this. So in the comics, Wonder Woman first appears in All-Star Comics #8. She then jumps to Sensation Comics and then gets Wonder Woman #1, and that's just within the course of a year.
Okay.
Now, in the comics, he is named Ares in Wonder Woman #1, but then almost immediately they change his name to Mars, saying that he's going to go by his Roman name. And then he is Mars until 1987. So for 45 years, he is Mars in the comic books. It is not until George Perez revitalizes Wonder Woman in 87 that he changes it back to Ares, and he makes it look like the Ares from the movie with the armor and the big helmet. Because before they just kind of did the typical like god in the almost like toga type thing, and they might have gave him like a Spartan type look.
Okay.
Throughout. So this version of Ares is more closely associated with George Perez, as a lot of this movie is. Here's my biggest problem with this. So I didn't mind that he was a politician of some sort who then ends up being Ares. My problem was once he becomes Ares, like he's in the suit and all that, when they showed the close-ups of him and you see him in that helmet, that did not look right.
No, and I know that was one of the biggest complaints that I heard about this movie is that we're supposed to expect him to be Ares. Yeah, I mean, I think it worked before when you didn't know who he was. Like, you just thought he was
Yeah.
a politician. And then when he did the turn and you're like, oh, it still worked. But when he put the costume on, I think
When he puts the suit on.
they
Yeah.
should have just gone straight voice and either gotten a different guy
Yes.
and I think they probably did instead of just CGIing or throwing a mask on him and
Yeah.
because clearly he's not a big man and
No.
he's not wearing the outfit that they showed. And if it
But I agree. They should have blacked out the mask, which is more what the comic book character looks like. You can't really see his face. They should have blacked out the mask. I agree, and just made it voice only. Yeah, because it doesn't look right when they show the close-ups. It's clearly not him in the suit, but when they do those close-ups, it ain't right. Our other comic book villain is Dr. Isabel Morrow, aka Dr. Poison, played by Elena Ayana or Anaya. She first appeared in Sensation Comics #2 in February of 1942, and she has the honor of being Wonder Woman's first costumed supervillain. So very fitting to put her in this movie. She's the first quote unquote villain for Wonder Woman, and so she is in the first Wonder Woman movie, and I am okay with that.
yeah, I mean it worked.
And it worked for the time. I mean, in the comics, obviously, and we'll get into this a little bit more probably later. In the comics, obviously, Wonder Woman came out in the 40s, so that was World War II. And Dr. Poison worked with the Nazis, but it's essentially the same character. Like, she makes poison gas And it is hydrogen based, just like the movie talks about. But yeah, but they do change the look of the character around throughout the years. I don't know. I don't know if they ever did the like face plate thing that she wears in the movie. I can't recall if they've ever done that in the comics, but she does have a deformed face and always keeps it covered in some way.
Yeah, I seem to recall coming across that.
Then we've got Etta Candy, played by Lucy Davis, who is one of those that when I looked at her, I go, "What do I know you from? What do I know you from?" And then I realized, oh, she was I don't remember the character's name, but she was like the Pam character in the British Office, and she's Diane in Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
And she looks completely different to me in this movie, even though I did still go, I know you from something. She also first appeared with Dr. Poison in Sensation Comics #2 in February of 42. And this is actually, I talked about how much of the movie is more based off of George Perez's run in the 80s, as well as the New 52. But this version of Etta Candy fits more with Marston's creation of her in the 40s, where she's more of just a civilian character that just works with Steve Trevor. It's actually her and a group of ladies that work with Steve Trevor, because in the more modern versions, Etta Candy is more like a maybe like an Amanda Waller type character. Like she actually is a military woman, and she will stand up and fight along with Steve. So that's more of what the character's like in the comics now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you don't get a lot of that in this movie, obviously. So,
No, no, she's definitely just a little bit of comic relief.
right.
We can hit a couple of the other ones that were kind of big, but didn't really, in my opinion, serve a lot of purpose. First off is Hippolyta, the Queen of the Amazons, Diane's mom, played by Connie Nelson, who of course first appeared in the very first comic, All-Star Comics #8 in October of 1941. She played her role fine, but she, again, other than to help with the origin, didn't have much of any other role in the movie.
Not really.
Yeah. Same goes with Antipe, played by Robin Wright, who is from the comics, first appearing in Wonder Woman #312 in February of '84. She is Hippolyta's sister, but in the comics, she is actually like a feuding sister who is trying to overthrow her sister, Hippolyta. She is not killed in any type of way that she's killed in the movie. She is killed during Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Oh.
And then finally, we have our faux villain, if you would, Eric Ludendorff, played by Danny Houston, who amazing actor again. And of course, he has played a villain before in a comic book movie. We've talked about it, 30 Days of Night. But I did not know this. I'm not a history buff. Eric Ludendorff was a real guy.
I didn't know that until I was doing the research for this as well. And I was like, oh, that's an odd choice.
Yeah, real dude. He didn't die during World War I. He actually died in 1937. But I just found it so interesting that they decided to use a real historical person who was a general or whatever he was during World War I. And I was amazed. They used a real life person in this comic book movie.
Yes. Yeah. And much like the Ares thing, like, I'm fine with him, like, when he's just being a villain. And obviously, he does the villain thing to be a villain where he just shoots his own guys for fun.
Yeah.
Because that's always a way to inspire confidence in your men, just, randomly shoot them. But that fight at the end, like, I know they gave him some sort of superpowers because he was taking that drug, but it just, again, it was like, you expect me to believe that this, older guy, not like, I don't know how old he was supposed to be, but he's definitely older, he can go toe to toe with Wonder Woman? Like,
who is a demigod.
right, who's a demigod,
Yeah.
and like a trained martial art fighter, like pit fighter, like she has trained with the best of the best on for her entire life, and this guy is just like a general. Like
Yeah.
that part
Yeah.
was, the end is where the movie kind of struggles a little bit.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with the fact that this is a great movie for about 75% of it. And then that last 25%, it does go downhill, becomes a little too cheesy. But we'll get into that. Let me go ahead since we talked about the characters. I do want to ask you this. I wrote nothing down about the 3 soldiers that are on Steve's team because I just did not think they are enough to have mentioned. But do you have anything to say about their little squad?
I also did not write anything down. I mean, I
Yeah.
like Ewan Bremer. Like I've
Yeah.
enjoyed him in a lot of stuff, but you're right. None of them really were in the movie enough.
Yeah, they were just your stereotypical, ragtag group is all it was.
Yeah,
Captain America did it better. The Howling Commandos
I agree.
did it better. Yeah. All right. So as always, we finished with the characters. I got to ask you, who do you want to see again? And who do you wish would choke in an orange cloud of hydrogen-based gas?
I want to see more Steve Trevor. Unfortunately, not the Steve Trevor we got in Wonder Woman 84.
I didn't even want to see the Wonder Woman we got in 1984.
That's true, but that's another episode.
That's
Uh,
another episode.
and because I had to put somebody, I put Doctor Poison just because I don't like they didn't do enough with. I mean,
I agree.
with what she did, she was fine, but like it wasn't really like the character wasn't really fleshed out. It was just this random, weird, deformed character who just wanted to kill people for the sake of killing people, and like there was no backstory or development. Like it was just, eh. So
Yeah.
like I said, what she did was fine, but there wasn't enough for me to want more.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I would go with you there on the Dr. Poison. It's not so much that I don't want her in the movie, but like you're saying, I just wish they had done more with her. Especially considering the fact that she is Wonder Woman's first supervillain in the comics. At least have a little bit more of a maybe do almost like I hate to say it this way, but a kryptonite moment where maybe there's a gas that she's able to use that slows down Wonder Woman
Yeah.
and weakens Wonder Woman. Maybe they could have done that before Wonder Woman had her fight with Ludendorff.
Okay. Yeah, and that would have made that fight a little bit more something.
Yeah.
But I mean, I mean, for being Wonder Woman's first villain, she barely even interacted with Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Because what the only scene they're in together is at that like gala event when Wonder Woman walks in with the blue dress,
Right.
and they don't even interact with each other.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think the only other woman other than the Amazonians, I think the only other woman that Wonder Woman interacts with is Edda in the entire movie.
Yes.
Okay, well, be interested to talk to Bethany about whether or not Wonder Woman passed the Bechdel test.
I'm trying to think. All the women, because it's only women at the beginning of the movie, and very few of them are talking about men until Steve show up. It might solely because of
But
that.
don't they talk about Ares?
But yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
It would be. Yeah, there's a chance that it passes, but yeah, once she leaves the island, it 100% does not, because even any conversation she has with Edda is about Steve.
Yeah.
So.
Now it's time for a commercial.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-host to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.
All right, let's move on into the moving panels. I don't have an awful lot here, but there were a lot of comic book references. It's really not based off of any comic story, and that's mainly because Wonder Woman was not in World War I. She was in World War II. They made the changes, I think, for 2 reasons. One is they wanted to not have it be so connected, or not connected, but so similar to Captain America. So you just do a whole different war that's roughly the same war. But I also found that Zack Snyder and the writers wanted to change it because they felt that World War One had a lot of similarities to today because it was a development to a new generation, which is they felt was going on in the present day. They also liked that the World War One had your first automated war. We had what would eventually become tanks. We had machine guns that were being used for the first time. You had gas being used as a weapon for the first time. And so it gave them a lot to play with when it came to having Wonder Woman in this world.
Correct.
But there's a lot of, like I said, references and stuff. So first off, the origin. I will say in the very first comic, if you go back to All-Star Comics, there is no mention of how Wonder Woman was born. So the whole clay thing doesn't come in until almost a decade later. I think it was in the 50s when they started doing the Hippolyta made her from clay and then asked the gods to bring her to life. It wasn't until the New 52 in 2011 when they retconned it so that Wonder Woman was the biological daughter of Hippolyta and Zeus. And that was when they finally brought that in. So there is, like I said, that connection to the New 52. Which origin do you like better?
I mean, I guess just because it's less weird, the biological of Zeus and Hippolyta, just because, I'm not in, it gets with the whole, like, she was made of clay and, but I mean, I can easily see how both of them would work together, like Hippolyta lied to Diana for so long, and
Yeah.
then that's what Diana believed until all of a sudden she found out the truth. So
Yeah, I do like the way the movie puts both of those origins together, and they do acknowledge the clay origin, but then they bring it to making her a demigod. I don't know. Part of me, and this could be a nostalgia thing, part of me always liked the clay origin just because it was a unique origin for Wonder Woman. Because demigods, I mean, we have demigods. There's Hercules. And I just think that doing the clay just gave Wonder Woman a unique story. And they did it to where she was endowed with the gifts of the gods. Almost the kind of the same way that Captain Marvel Shazam. It's like the speed of Mercury and the I know it was like the wisdom of Athena and the beauty of Aphrodite or something like that. Because it said all that in like the opening of her early comics. So I kind of like that idea, but I like the way the movie did it, so I'm satisfied with both. Another thing was the way she gets the name Diana Prince. So I think it's a great little nod in the movie when she goes to call herself Diana, Princess of Themyscira, and Steve cuts her off and just calls her Diana Prince. That's a great way to give her name.
right.
Do you know how she got it in originally in the comic books?
Isn't it fairly similar?
No.
Okay, then I don't remember.
So in the comic, Steve is in the hospital. This is after she has brought him back to Earth, not Earth. She's already on Earth. Brings him back to America. He's still kind of injured. He's in a hospital, and she can't get into the hospital. It's a military hospital. And so she sees this woman. Now, okay, I got to back up just a little bit. She is named Diana. She is given the name Diana by her mom because she is named after the moon goddess, Diana. She walks up to this woman, a nurse, who is crying on the steps of the hospital. And she talks to the woman to see what's wrong, finds out that this woman needs money so that her and her fiance can get married. Wonder Woman has just made a bunch of money doing her little bracelet and bullets trick for like a little sideshow. And she agrees to give the woman money if she'll give her credentials. And the woman says, well, what's your name? Because if we're going to switch identities, I need to know who I'm going to be. And she goes, well, my name's Diana. And the nurse says, oh, funny enough, my name's Diana too. Diana Prince. And that is how she originally gets the name Diana Prince in the comic books.
So she bought somebody's ID.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That was it. That's how she gets the name. Story over.
Yeah,
I like it better the way the movie does.
yeah,
it.
I think the movie fixed that problem.
I also got a kick out of the moment where Diana is trying the ice cream. That is 100% Jeff Johns doing from Justice League, New 52 reboot in 2011, which is also portrayed in the Justice League movie, where she tries the ice cream. She's amazed by it. She congratulates the person for what they have created. It's just a great little nod that I love is now a part of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, no, that was pretty funny.
Did you get the Superman homage scene?
Which, maybe?
So there was a scene that was pretty much done just as an homage to Superman, to the Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
Okay.
Do you know which scene it was?
No, you're gonna have to help me out on this one.
Okay, it is the scene right after she gets, her new look and all that, which features the hat and the glasses.
Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, yeah.
And they end up in an alley where they are confronted by the men who are trying to get the information back from Steve. That scene is almost shot and done exactly like the mugging scene from Superman the movie, including the part where Clark catches the bullet. And they do it. Obviously she stops the bullet with her bracelet, but they have the bullet fall into. I think it falls into Steve's hand in the movie, but they do that almost exactly. And I couldn't find anything that said that that's what Patty Jenkins or Zack Snyder or anybody have meant to do. But I can't help but say they shot that to be an homage to the Christopher Reeve '78 movie.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, it's not like these people didn't know where they came from. So
yeah. And then the other big connection that I found was the sword, the God Killer. That is actually from the comic books, but it is not used by Wonder Woman. Do you know who actually wields the God Killer in the comics?
No, I do not.
Deathstroke.
Ah.
Deathstroke is actually gifted the God Killer. It is in Deathstroke number 7 in August of 2015. So that sword was even pretty new into the comics when it made it into this movie.
Because the only one I could come up with was for the sword that Gore the God Butcher had, but that's the other.
That's Marvel.
That's the other guy. So,
but I mean, this is the same kind of idea. It was given to I forgot the god who created it, but it was given to Deathstroke in order to kill this other god. I got to be honest, I'm not a huge Deathstroke fan, so I have not read this story. But I did find out, God Killer, it is from the comics, but it is a weapon used by Deathstroke, not Wonder Woman. All right, let's get into it. Bag it, stack it, or trade it. Nicholas, what say you?
See, I've been debating this for a while because I knew it was coming. I want to say bag it because it's a very good movie for like 80%.
Okay, you give it a little bit more than I said 75.
Yeah,
so give it a little bit more than
I will give it a little bit more. I mean, I have a couple quibbles with the end, and then there's one quibble I have with the whole No Man Land scene, where like this woman shows up, turns the tide of the entire battle, and then no one ever talks about that again. Like literally hundreds of men on both sides, and no one talks about Wonder Woman again until she shows up to fight Doomsday. All right. Anyway, I want to say bag it. Unfortunately, and I don't know if we'll ever do the episode, but we probably will because I know you like to torture me. Wonder Woman 84 is so bad, it almost takes this movie down.
Oh, okay.
Because it set itself up to be in such a good place that knowing what comes next, it hurts it enough. But I think I'm still going to go bag it because it is a really good origin movie, a standalone origin movie that, you don't need any of the other DCEU to watch. Yeah. And so, if you can completely divorce yourself of what came before, what came after, I think overall this movie is pretty good.
Yeah, I went with bag it as well. I will say I separate it from Wonder Woman 84. I didn't think about Wonder Woman 84 even while I was coming up with my decision and all. I do separate it. What I question, and I will let you respond as to your thoughts on this. Should they have released this movie before Batman v Superman?
Yes.
Now that would have changed. That probably would have changed the open, where Bruce is sending her the
Right.
picture, which
But-
causes her to relive the.
But you could
the whole
you
story.
could delete that whole 5 minutes or whatever it is from the movie and change nothing about the movie. If you just went
True.
straight
Straight into Themyscira.
Themyscira and you know, like, and honestly, the only reason that scene exists is because it did come out after Batman vs Superman. I think that the failure of and we've talked about this before on here and on, I know I've talked about it over on PCR. The failure of the DCU, other than relying too heavily on one person, is that they went for the big prize right away.
Yeah.
Instead of building your characters up. I mean, everybody knows Superman, everybody knows Batman, so you didn't have to restart that. But outside of the Wonder Woman we've already talked about from the 70s, nobody
Linda
really
Carter,
with Linda Carter, nobody really knows Wonder Woman. Nobody knows Aquaman. Nobody knows Aquaman until that Momoa movie was a joke.
Yeah.
You know, nobody really knows. I mean, Flash had 2 TV series that people kind of knew, but you know, it's still relatively obscure when it comes to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Nobody knew Cyborg.
Yeah.
You know, so I think just trying to go for it right away, it kind of crushes the whole thing. And I think that because the whole DCU experiment sort of failed, this movie stands out even more.
Yeah. I agree, and that's again why I put it with a Baggett. The fact that you don't have to connect it to anything else. You can still watch it. Yes, it does have that Bruce Wayne connection at the beginning, but I mean that could just be it's Bruce Wayne contacting Wonder Woman, you know, Diana Prince. It doesn't. You don't have to connect it to it's Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne.
Right.
I agree with you. Like, yeah, the ending falters a little bit, but other than that, I mean, it is almost a perfect movie, and especially for it being the solo Wonder Woman movie. My thing about though Batman v Superman, which is where she officially got introduced in the into cinematic universe, is that is such a cool entrance when she shows up in the battle with Doomsday.
Yes.
You know, her little, which I know it's kind of been made fun of, but her guitar riff, you know, the banana, you know, it's so cool though in that scene with Doomsday. So I love her entrance in Batman v Superman, but I do wish we had gotten this movie before. But yeah, it still holds up. You can still watch it. It can still be always remembered as the first Wonder Woman movie ever. And so for those reasons, I decided to bag it.
I do have one question, and I don't know if it's something that we can even answer. How much influence? Obviously, Zack Snyder is the one that casted her. So Patty Jenkins didn't really have much of a choice. Like, he had already casted her for Batman versus Superman. So she was kind of stuck with her.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I don't know if Patty's had any say.
And I know that Zack Snyder has writing credits for this one. How much influence did he have? Like, was he on set? Did he, you know, how much? Because I can see a lot of his visual style, especially watching a bunch of The Watchmen recently for your other show, you know, for back in March. I can see some of Patty Jenkins using the visual style of Zack Snyder and some of the writing style. So I was just wondering how much influence he had over this movie compared to, you know, other DCU movies.
I'm sure he had some just because of the whole DCEU connected universe plan. I mean, so there probably was a lot of him having a say, because I'm pretty sure if you go back, I didn't pay that much attention. I'm pretty sure he's probably listed as an executive producer.
Yeah, I forgot to check that. I know he's listed as a screenwriter, but I didn't know.
Yeah, but it's a story by Zack Snyder. I do know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would think he has to have some say. I mean, clearly that battle at the end is a Zack Snyder battle.
Right.
But yeah, even the one little like World War I battle that we get when she uses the lasso of truth, the slow-mo shots, very, like you were talking, that's very Watchmen like. So yeah, there had to be some connection. But I still think Patty Jenkins made this her own movie, even with the little influence that she may have had from Zack Snyder. And, if we ever do Wonder Woman 84, we can talk about whether this is another, like Frank Miller with Sin City and then Frank Miller with The Spirit. Is Patty Jenkins a director that needs someone kind of guiding her?
Well, I'm sure when you decide to torture me with Wonder Woman 84, that's a conversation we'll be having.
Yeah. All right, but like I said, conversation for another day, just like the origins of Wonder Woman. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you, Nicholas, for joining me on this. Again, always hey, look, you joke about how I bring you on for bad movies. This is not a bad movie.
I finally got to do a good one. I'm very excited.
So we'll have to find another one for you. But thanks everybody for listening. Rate and review the show. But for today, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramie Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.